Welcome back to Spooky Storytime, where I'm just gonna pick a place in my inbox, read a story, click next, read a story, click next. We're doing these videos because I literally have thousands of your weird, unexplainable stories in my inbox, and I wanna share as many of them as I possibly can. I don't know if they're gonna be long, I don't know if they're gonna be short, I don't know if they're gonna be good, I don't know if they're gonna make any sense, but we're just gonna pick a place, we're gonna start reading, and we're gonna see what we get. What's up, glitches? I'm Auntie Matrix, and I read your weird, unexplainable stories about things like glitches in the Matrix, dreams, aliens, and the paranormal. All the stories that I read are real experiences that people have had that they send into me. Our motto in this community is we believe you. If you want to join our glitch community on Discord, if you want to join in on the lives, if you want to get anti-Matrix merch, or if you want to get a copy of my book, A Glitch in the Matrix, all the links are in the description below. But right now, let's get started. So sit back, grab a snack, and let's get weird. Hi, anti-Matrix. Hi. Thank you so much for providing a safe space for us to share our stories. I've been a follower of yours for a very long time. I think I've watched/listened to nearly everything that you've posted across all of your accounts. I can't get enough. Thank you so much for watching. I posted the story in the comments on TikTok when you shared what's in the Kool-Aid's deja vu video with us. I added a few more details this time around since I'm not stuck using a certain amount of characters, lol. My fellow glitches, please feel free to reach out to me if you've experienced something similar or if you have insight or advice. My TikTok username is singingxsirens. Anyways, on to the story. When I was around 8 years old, I was having deja vu very frequently, and it scared me so much. I never told my parents because I was so freaked out. It was never anything miraculous, pretty mundane experiences. The only strange thing was how much it happened. I'd estimate that it happened 5 times a month for a couple of years. Wow. One day, the deja vu was happening a lot, multiple times for extended periods of time, like remembering 15 plus minutes of an experience. Looking back, it almost felt like I was stuck in some sort of time loop. It really freaked me out. I thought there was something wrong with me. I was running errands with my mom. As we pulled into the bank, the deja vu started again. I remembered the conversation my mom and I were having, people crossing in front of the car, the song on the radio, where the sun was in relation to the bank, etc. It was like I was watching a movie I had just watched the night before. With each new thing that I remembered, my anxiety got worse. I was beginning to panic. It continued as we walked into the bank. I remembered going up and touching the leaves on the big potted plant in the entryway, but I didn't do what I remember doing because I was so scared at that point. Basically on the verge of tears. I just wanted it to stop. So I walked in the complete opposite direction away from the plant. Finally, the feeling/remembering stopped, of course, because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. Here comes the crazy part. I haven't had deja vu since. As an adult, I understand it better, so the thought of it doesn't scare me anymore. I'm honestly kind of sad I don't have it at all anymore. But I always wonder, was I developing some sort of clairvoyance? If I was, did my decision to deny my gift make me lose it? Was I experiencing a connection to myself from another timeline? Should I go talk to a psychic? Would they be able to give me some sort of insight about what was happening? I've put the story on Reddit and didn't get much of a response. I've never come across anyone who's had a similar experience. I would love to connect with someone who could help me get some answers. Thank you so much for helping me share my story. So I have heard that deja vu can be like you remembering parts of a past life, experiencing those again, like you've been here before in like a similar situation. But in this case, it does kind of sound like maybe you were having some sort of gift where you were able to know what was going to happen in the future. And maybe that would have developed more if you weren't so scared of it. So I think the fact that you were so scared of it and then like changed it up because it was freaking you out so bad, you changed up and did something different. Maybe that shut it off, because I feel like we have to be open to being able to use our abilities and our gifts. I think everybody has them, but you have to be open to it. And I feel like maybe you close yourself off to it a little bit because you're scared. I don't know personally, but I would say maybe it would be a good idea to go talk to a psychic or somebody that trains in those kind of things that can help you to get it back. Maybe you can explain it to them and maybe they can help you get back to that place if that's something that you want to do. I'm not really sure though. That's just like an idea. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Do you have any ideas or advice for this person? Please let us know. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I want to start off by saying I love your content. Thank you. So I'm not sure if this would be considered a glitch or just something really weird that happened, but I will tell it anyway. For some context, my mom has been in the hospital for a couple of weeks. My sister and I went to visit our mom in the hospital today. We were with her for a couple of hours. At one point, we decided to go down the hospital cafeteria to get some lunch. We had both picked up a tray and each got some pizza. But then we, for some reason, walked away from each other to get something else. She got soup and I got pudding. When we went to look for each other, we couldn't find the other. The cafeteria wasn't filled with an overwhelming amount of people, maybe a total of 10 people max, and it wasn't a huge place, but not exactly small either. This cafeteria also didn't have any type of corners between the food or the cashier. All of a sudden, my sister walked up to me and basically told me that she couldn't find me, which was what just happened to me with her. It's not like either of us were behind someone else. It was like within a matter of less than 2 minutes, we jumped timelines a couple of times. Not sure if both of us are/were confused or what. For me, I have questions. Like, why in a relatively open area could neither my sister nor I find the other one? With us both being in the same room, did walking away from each other cause us to jump timelines? Signed, a confused follower. I feel like I'm answering an advice column, like signed, confused follower. Dear confused follower, I'm not really sure. That is really weird. I mean, I would say that you just like couldn't see each other, but if you're saying that it was like a smaller area, there was only 10 people and there was no places to be hiding, like where you were, I have no idea what could have happened. I mean, it is very possible that maybe you guys switched timelines. I don't know. I guess what you're saying is right. I don't have any other insights or ideas about what that could have been. If you guys know or have any ideas, please let us know in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Weird. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. Longtime follower. I love your videos. Thank you. I grew up being told by people who are considered professionals in the paranormal field that I am an indigo child, which I'd be one of the last born by my research. But it's made me extremely sensitive to ghosts. Thanks to things that happened around me as a child, my mom went from not believing at all to being a believer in just about everything. But on to the stories. I have 2 different stories that involve 2 of my late grandparents. I lost my grandpa when I was in 4th grade and was given his collection of small brass statues, his favorite jacket, and his wedding band. Sadly, I have lost his jacket, but I still have his statues in storage. His ring, however, even though he had small hands for a man, I was still a child, so it wouldn't fit on my fingers, so I wore it on a chain around my neck. One day, a couple of years after he passed, while at my great-grandparents' house, playing outside with my big bunch of cousins, somehow, even though the chain did not break, the ring disappeared. We all searched all over the huge yard, but we couldn't find it. Even searched inside the house, even rooms I had not entered. It was just gone, and I was devastated. A few years later, I met my now husband when I was 15, and about a year after meeting him, I was in my bathroom at home looking for a hair tie in a little basket that we had, and what do I find? My grandfather's ring. I know I had it on the chain the day that I lost it. I always did. And the ring wasn't damaged at all. With the ring and the chain both being fine, me and my mom could never understand how it happened at all, let alone ended up in my bathroom. Sadly, because he did have small hands, my husband cannot wear it, but it lives safely on my keychain. The second story is about my great-grandma. We were very close. She was the most beautiful soul anyone could have had the pleasure to meet. She was Christian, but she actually never judged anyone like most that I know do. She would say the very rare curse word, would enjoy a glass of wine, and oh, the stories she had of her arguments with her husband had me laughing for days. We got very close the few years before her passing because I got pregnant at 17. I was tearing up when I told her, and she laughed and asked why I would be so scared of telling her about a beautiful baby. And my daughter got sick, and I had issues with my husband, then fiancé, so I lived with her for a while. She was such an amazing help with my daughter. They grew very close as well. In fact, she openly admitted my daughter was her favorite person, though she loved everyone equally. They just belonged together. Maybe a year before she passed, after we had moved out and things were more settled, she downsized. My whole childhood, she had this mug that I loved. It was white, but almost completely covered in different colored Easter eggs, and just one of the eggs had a chick sitting in it. So she gave that to me when she downsized. Then, after she passed, I was in Goodwill with my mom, and we found another mug just like it. Of course, I had to buy it. Later, while going through my pretty big mug collection, I found I had somehow collected 3 of them. There's the one she gave, then the one I bought, but the third? I never came across the third until I did in my house. I don't have the best memory, but I can recall the day I found the second one because me and my mom were laughing and crying about how it had to be some kind of sign from her. Sadly, since her passing, there has been a block to my seeing and sensing the dead. I do think it's slowly coming back, which surprisingly is a relief. It was hard losing her and something that was a part of me at the same time, especially because I was pregnant with my youngest and hadn't really been telling people. It was a hard time, but thanks to the replicating mugs and the few dreams where I do believe she visited me, I got through it. Thanks for reading, and sorry for the bit of gushing over her I tend to do when I talk about her. Okay, the first one is crazy, and the reason it's crazy is because it was years later that ring showed up. Like, were you thinking about the ring? Had you possibly been thinking about it, asking for help to bring it back? Or like, it literally just showed up years later? That's crazy. I mean, obviously, I think that your grandpa was bringing the ring back for you, but why did it take years is my question, because unless it just hopped into another timeline and hopped back and it was in that other timeline for years, I don't know. The second one, I love that you found the exact mug in the thrift store. Like that, I feel like was definitely a sign that she was saying hello to you. And the fact that there was a third one in your house that you don't know where it came from, I feel like that's just another sign. Like definitely she's saying hi to you and she's around you. That's what I take from that. But how freaking cool is that? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I recently discovered your channel and I've become obsessed with the stories that you share. I'm from India and I'd like to share a few short stories from my mother's side of the family. These stories take place in villages and I'll do my best to explain them, even though I'm more familiar with city life. Before my mother was born, my maternal grandparents lived in a large mansion. This mansion had a tamarind tree. I don't know what kind of tree that is. I don't even know if I said that right, which was believed to be haunted, possibly even demonic. A tree demonic. The house also had its own small pond, as many village homes do in India. Story number 1, the vanishing fish. My mother's grandmother owned a part of a lake where fish were cultivated. Every few months, the families could catch the fish and divide them. One day, my nana, maternal grandfather, brought home 10 kilograms of fish, which his mother, my great-grandmother, began cleaning by the pond. The fish were already dead for 2 to 3 hours. As she squatted down in her sari, cleaning the fish, she suddenly felt a touch on her back. She turned around briefly, but then she looked back at the basket. All the fish had vanished, disappearing in the blink of an eye. I'm not sure about the details, but I know my nanny, maternal grandmother, experienced something that left her with a terrible fever, leading them to sell the house after my mom started middle school. They had 2 houses, one they lived in, which was haunted, and another where they kept their farming supplies and cattle, located about a mile apart. That one was weird. Where did the fish go? Story number 2, the haunted bamboo grove. One night, my mom and nanny were returning from a farmhouse when they passed by a bamboo grove. In our culture, bamboo is believed to be haunted, and spirits are said to reside there. Oh my God, I have bamboo in my backyard. As they walked by, they heard a loud splash, like a big fish jumping in and out of the water. However, there was no water body nearby. Weird. Story number 3, the mysterious man. One day, my mom and her cousin were near that same bamboo grove when they saw a man they had never seen before. He looked at them, smiled, and said, "What are you doing here? This place is not safe. Go home." He seemed kind, and my mom felt that he was trying to protect them. She told my nanny about the encounter, but the abandoned house nearby was known to everyone in the neighborhood, and no one had ever seen this man before or since. We believe he might have been a spirit who was looking out for my mom. Number 4, the demonic dog. One time, my nana was returning from a wedding with food in a tiffin box. He had to pass by their old home and the bamboo grove. After they sold the old house, they moved to the other house with the cattle. As he passed by the old house and the bamboo field, he encountered a creature that looked like a demonic dog chasing him. He fell off his bike and the creature began biting at his pants, trying to drag him away. Realizing this was no ordinary animal, my nana said, "Whatever you do, I won't let you have the food." He fought off the creature, and when he finally reached home, he threw the food into the water, wasted it all, bathed, and sprinkled Gangajal holy water everywhere. He then told Nani about the encounter. Number 5, the vanishing cow. This last story involves my mother's maternal uncle who passed away 2 years ago. We call him Nana. He had polio and couldn't walk for long distances without assistance. One day, the family lost a big cow, and everyone searched for it for days. One day, Nana was playing with his friends, and on his way back home, he saw a white cow, just like the one they had lost. The cow was mooing at him, as if calling him, and it was standing in a dried-up pond. Despite his struggle due to polio, he went down into the pond. As he got closer, he noticed something strange. The cow looked dead and eerie. He realized it wasn't a living cow, but something else entirely. The cow began dragging him toward the little water left in the pond, possibly to drown him. Nana screamed, and somebody nearby heard him and came to help. As soon as they arrived, the cow vanished into thin air. The person who came to help said there was nothing there. After this incident, Nana's health deteriorated, and no medicine seemed to work. The family called a priest and performed a puja, after which everything returned to normal. I hope you enjoyed these stories. They may not be as exciting as others, but I wanted to share what I know. Have a great day and love you. Can we talk about this vanishing cow at the end? And why was it dead? So it was like a dead cow thing making mooing noise. Is this like the equivalent? Like, is this like a skinwalker in India? Like the skinwalkers in India are cows and they're mooing, trying to get you to come over to them instead of like people in the woods here crying. Do you know what I mean? Is this making any sense? I have no idea if I'm even making sense, but that's freaking weird, man. I need to know, what do you guys think about these stories in the comments? Let me know. And thank you so much for sharing all of your stories. Hi, Jessica. Hi. I have been following your account for a while and have finally gotten the courage to share my story with you and your audience. Although this is not a glitch in the Matrix story, I still want to share it with you. I still remember every detail like it was yesterday. Some people do not believe me, and some do. Here's why. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was at my grandmother's house with my mother. My mom was sitting at the dining room table going over my grandparents' bills for the month. My grandmother was in the kitchen making breakfast, and my grandfather was in the living room watching TV. I was in the back room watching Mr. Rogers. The doorbell rings, and my mom calls me to come see who is at the back door. I go to the back door and stand on my tippy toes and look through the first door window and notice it's my grandfather's friend, Mr. Taylor. We have 2 doors. One door is a wooden door with a small glass window, and the second door is a door with decorative iron bars with glass. A lot of old houses were built like this in the neighborhood. I opened the wooden door, and just as I was about to open the iron door to let him in, my mom asked, "Wait, who is it?" I said, "It's Mr. Taylor." She asks me again, and this time both my grandparents and my mom all ask very loudly, "Who?" I replied again, "It's Mr. Taylor." They all stayed silent for a few seconds, and then my grandmother very sternly said, "Do not let him in. Ask him what he wants." I thought to myself, maybe they were no longer friends, and I asked him, what did he want? Mr. Taylor replied, "Is Papo home?" Papo's my grandfather. I said back to my family, "He's asking for Papo." My grandfather yelled back, "Tell him I'm not home." I did as I was told and told him that he wasn't there. Mr. Taylor very sadly replied, "Okay, can you tell him I stopped by?" I said yes. After that, my grandmother said loudly, "Close the door and lock it." I didn't ask any questions, but I do see my mom very nervous, walking back and forth to the front door and then to the back door multiple times. Both my grandparents asked if she saw him, and she stated no. I went back to watching TV. My mom comes to me about 20 minutes later and asks me if that was really him at the back door. I stated yes and asked my mom, why is she asking me that if they were right in the kitchen and the dining room? She very nervously replied that Mr. Taylor had passed away early that morning. I didn't really understand what death was at that age, so I said, okay. As I got older and understand more about death, spirits, etc., it freaks me out now telling this story. Something was definitely trying to get in that house and appeared to me. It was definitely him, and it even had on the coat that he normally wears. I will never know if it was truly Mr. Taylor or something else. Can you imagine what would have happened if I let him in? There was another incident at that same house that I will send another email about that involved my sister and I a few years prior. Thank you for taking time to read this. Let me know if you have any questions. Anisha. Okay, I know that the family reacted that way, but I'm going to say that I don't think that it was something pretending to be Mr. Taylor. I think it was Mr. Taylor. If Mr. Taylor had just passed away and that was your grandfather's like best friend or just friend in general, I think if he had just passed away that he was coming to say goodbye to your grandpa. I think it's interesting that he didn't just like appear to your grandpa and he instead like knocked on the door basically and tried to come in. But I think that he was just trying to come and say goodbye. I'm wondering if your family acted that way because they thought the same thing and they were just scared, or if they thought it was something pretending to be Mr. Taylor, and that's why they were like, do not let it in this house. I wonder. But in my brain, it sounds like he was just coming to say goodbye, but I could definitely be wrong. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hey, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I'm a new fan of yours. I would prefer if you tell the story my name stays anonymous because I don't want certain people to hear this. You got it. Always anonymous, guys. Unless you put your name in the actual story, always anonymous. My whole life, starting when I was a little girl, I've had dreams that are more like premonitions. But usually the dream gets things a little twisted. They're never an exact science. My mom was also this way, but as she got older, she began predicting things without having dreams. She could feel things coming and she was always right, even about things that seemed like they would never happen. 2 days before she passed away from a stroke, I was driving her around town to do some errands, and out of nowhere, she starts bawling and says, I don't want to die. And I was like, Mom, what are you talking about? You're not going to die. When I got the phone call 2 days later that she had a stroke and didn't make it, I was beside myself. I'm so sorry. This was 5 years ago. Fast forward to January of 2024, I kept having nightmares. Almost every night I dreamed that my husband died. It was always gunfire. The first time we were at a place of business and it was being robbed and he was shot by a gunman. Another night I had a dream that he shot himself. They felt so real that it was affecting my real life. I was so convinced that something was going to happen to him that I told him about the dreams and projected my paranoia onto him. I would get worried about him driving or going to the bank or even just go to work. He works in Portland a lot and there's a lot of violence. I began taking more videos and pictures with him and making sure we had everything in order in case something did happen to him. I would cry to him and tell him to never forget how much I love him, and I told him if he needed to talk to me, he could talk to me about anything. 2 months later, I'm still having the nightmares. We were standing in the kitchen making dinner, and I pulled out my phone and started recording him, and he got shy and asked me why I was recording him, and I said, just in case you die. We both laughed, and he said, I'm not going to die. About 10 minutes later, we get a call that his sister's husband, my brother-in-law, and my kid's uncle that we have been close to for 10 years, shot himself. My ears started ringing and everything else went silent. I couldn't make out what my husband was saying. I got dizzy and sat down on the floor. We were both on the living room floor crying after that, and I couldn't help but to think about my dreams. But of course I didn't say that. I haven't said anything about it to anyone. After that, I didn't have another nightmare about my husband dying. Thanks for reading. It feels so good to let this story out. My sister-in-law is still having a tough time. She is now a widow with 5 young children. My niece, her oldest, is only 13 and is having to take on a lot of responsibilities and the burden of her mom's grief. Her youngest is only 4 and won't know his dad. I just feel so awful. He was an amazing dad and uncle, and none of us saw it coming. You never know what someone is going through on the inside. I spent a lot of time being angry. I thought, how could he do this to his family? He was the best man at our wedding. My husband and kids are also still so sad. I don't know if it's something we will ever get over. I'm so sorry for your loss. I wonder why, though, you were seeing your husband in the dreams when it was actually your husband's sister's husband that it was happening to. I wonder if there was some timeline in which it was supposed to be your husband and then you switched out of it somehow, you did something to change it. Or I wonder if it's just because he would be so upset by it, they were so close or something. I'm not really sure. And if that's true, if the second is true, and if you have more premonition dreams, how are you supposed to differentiate between, like, is the person in my dream, is this actually happening to them? Or is this a representation of somebody else? I would love if there's anyone here that's watching that has had experience with this and that can answer that, or maybe give a little insight here. But let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Auntie. Hi. Would it be possible for you to read this without adding my name identifiers? Yes, it would. Again, friends, always anonymous. Unless you put your name in the story or something, always anonymous. I need to get this out to see if anyone else has experience with this. This is an issue I've had since I was a child and is confusing the hell out of me. For context, I have a significant history of trauma beginning in early childhood and spanning into my early 30s. This issue was something I noticed in my early childhood and is still commented on by others. When I was 6, I was given a beautiful watch by my grandmother. My grandmother was my favorite person in the whole world. She was the kind of woman that I wanted to grow into, but never realized I could be. I had this watch for a week before it began to slow, and it stopped working about 2 weeks after I got it. My parents were furious that I had broken such an expensive gift, and I was left bruised and in pain for a few days. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry you went through that. I never told Grandma that I'd been beaten, just that my watch had stopped. She hugged me tight and said, "Let's go see if we can get that fixed." I went with her to the jeweler's, and their watch repairer said to leave it with him for a few days to look at it. We picked it up the Saturday after. The repair guy said there was nothing wrong with it, but he'd cleaned it and changed the battery just in case. After that, I refused to wear my watch in case I broke it again. Around the same time, my mother had got a new wall clock to hang on the wall of the dining room where we sat to do homework in the afternoons. This wall clock worked for maybe a month before it did the same thing my watch did. Over a week, it began to slow, then eventually stopped. My mother changed the battery, but a month later, it did the same thing again. The battery was changed again, but the next month, it broke again for the third time. This time, my mother gave up. She left it as decoration, refusing to change the battery again. My stepfather gave her a little decorative clock for the TV cabinet about a year later. It was a chiming clock in a glass case with pretty glass flowers. I used to love watching the flowers spin at the bottom of the case. This clock slowed and stopped 3 months after arriving. I spent very little time in the living room, and I was only around 7 to 8 years old, so I didn't think much of it. I was in a public school at the time, and every single classroom had the same cheap, loud clocks on the wall. Every year, within weeks, the clocks would stop. Batteries were constantly being changed only in classrooms that I was in. My 3rd grade teacher was also my 5th grade teacher, and she was the first external person to make an offhand comment. She'd noticed that the clock in that classroom, the one that kept breaking the year before, spent an entire year working perfectly. Then, once I was back in her classroom, it began to stop again. By mid-year, she'd given up and purchased a digital clock, finally a clock that didn't break. When I was 12 and about to enter high school, my grandmother gave me another watch. This one had a leather band and my name engraved on the back. I'd forgotten about my previous watch at this point and wore the new one proudly. Sure enough, a week later, the watch began to slow. By the 2nd week, it stopped completely. My grandmother took it in stride, taking me to the watchmaker again to have it fixed. The watchmaker remembered me from the last watch and told my grandmother that I, quote, might just be one of those people who can't wear watches. She laughed and said, "Must be genetic." That was the day I realized that my grandmother's watch never seemed to tick. She'd been wearing the same broken watch since her 21st birthday. My watch broke again about a month after this. Rather than ask for it to be fixed, I just wore it. It felt like a secret that my grandma and I shared without actually talking about it. I spent my teen years in a state of survival. My stepfather constantly throwing me out and my mother crying for me to come home once the bruises went down. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. My grandmother was always there telling me that I could stay as long as I needed and that if the man ever hit me, she'd borrow my grandfather's shotgun. I knew the kind of woman she was, so I made a point to cover my bruises. She would do time in prison because of me. When I turned 17 and again living with my parents, I saw my mother looking at a decorative clock when we were out and about one day. It was a huge thing made of reclaimed timber with brass numbers and hands. I went back to the store and I asked the owner to put it aside while I saved for it. He happily did, so I spent the next 3 months saving money from my after-school job. I gave her the clock for her birthday. She laughed, thanked me, and made a comment along the lines of, "It won't work now that you've touched it." Sure enough, the clock stopped a month later. I moved out of home 6 months later. My mother refused to change the battery, saying it was too pretty to take down. A month after I moved out, the clock started to tick again, slowly at first, but within a week it began ticking at a regular pace, as though it was slowly regaining energy. Since then, my parents dubbed me Clock Killer. Clocks and watches aren't the only things I have issues with. I have never had a pair of Bluetooth headphones or speakers last more than 3 months. My current pair I keep in a case deep in my dresser. They're almost a year old and have only shown signs of breaking when I use them for longer than 3 hours at a time. It's a sound similar to the feedback you'd hear through the car radio when a call was coming in on old mobile phones. Not only that, I've never had consistent Wi-Fi. It's always cutting out, usually when I dissociate or have an absence seizure. I've burned out 4 Wi-Fi routers in as many years. Recently, my partner and I moved in with their parents while saving for a house deposit, which is an international move for me. They had never had issues with electronics in the house. Within a week, an Auntie clock stopped and their Wi-Fi began to cut out periodically. I need to know if there's anyone else that has issues like this. I have other stories, but this one is already too long. First of all, it is not too long. We love long stories. We love details in stories. I feel like the more details in a story, the better you can picture the story, so the better the story is. Second of all, this was a great story. Thank you for sharing. And third of all, I have never heard of an issue with watches stopping and clocks stopping. However, I did personally have an issue for a while with electronics malfunctioning around me. Like electronic things would just malfunction or just not work around me. They would just stop working. So I get that part of it. And I think it had to do with my energy and really needing to ground my energy. And so I've worked a lot on grounding. And I feel like that really helps because I haven't had any issues like that since, for the most part. Now, everything is energy. So this could be the same with the watches. I think if it was just the watches, I would wonder if it was something else because that's like a time issue. And watches are not electronic. I mean, some of them can be, right? But the ones that you're talking about, the watches and clocks that are not electronic, they're not running off electricity. So I'm not sure how your energy fields could affect that. Although energy fields can affect everything because everything is energy. But the fact that also you have issues with Wi-Fi, you have issues with Bluetooth speakers, I feel like something is going on with your energy and you really need to ground. So I would work on grounding your energy. One of the easiest ways to ground your energy is to literally go outside barefoot. Put your bare feet on the earth and let the earth ground you. That is my take on it, is that you need to ground your energy and your energy is wacky right now. But I would love to hear other opinions in the comments, other advice in the comments. So please let us know. And thank you so much for sharing your story. This isn't much of a story, but more of a glitch caught on video. Ooh, we love videos. I was standing outside on my front steps when I noticed a grass spider on my deflated inflatable Halloween decor. Then I saw another spider just like it, maybe 2 feet away on the same decor, so I recorded that one also. I didn't think of anything except the 2 identical spiders, which isn't uncommon, are in the same area, and I thought it was gross. Anyways, I posted the video to my Snapchat and rewatched it a few times, and then I noticed that the first spider only has 7 legs on its right side. And I thought that was strange. And then I noticed that the second spider also only has 7 legs on the same side. And it's the same leg. Is that just a coincidence or a glitch? I don't know. I've attached the video below as well as a photo of the same spider I found on Google. Okay, hold on. Let's look at these. Okay, so this is a grass spider. Why did it look so giant? How big are these spiders? Alexa, how big is a grass spider? They can get as big as 6 inches across. That's gross. Okay, let's look at the video. All right, here we go. There's the one spider. Why is this eye so weird? There's the other spider. Huh. Wait, so this first one on the right side has 3 legs. And then the second spider on the right side has 3 legs. That is very interesting. That's really weird. I mean, I guess that could be a coincidence, or else it could be a little glitch. You get 2 little glitchy duplicate spiders in the Matrix. It's weird and gross. Thank you for sharing, though. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hi, Auntie. Hi. I have a story. It's not scary or anything. I just wanted to share it with you. All right, let's see it. I want to give you a little backstory first. So, about 12 years ago, my mom had bought a trailer from this sweet older couple. My mom had asked me to go see the trailer with her and to pay the couple. So, as the 4 of us were talking, the lady had informed us that her sister lived with them for a while. One night, her sister was out in the yard and she was walking back onto the porch. She actually fell, but ended up passing away on the porch. I can't remember exactly how she died. Okay, I was not expecting that. So anyway, not too long after my mom moved in, I ended up getting pneumonia and I had to stay a few nights in the hospital. I still wasn't 100%, but I was able to go home. I went to my mom's after I got out and I stayed a few nights with her. I was sleeping on the couch in the living room. It was around evening time. I was alone at the time. My mom ran to the store. Something had woken me up. That's when I saw a figure of an old woman walk right in front of the TV. The TV wasn't on. I just chalked it up to me being sick and was seeing things. Fast forward to about a year later, I had moved in with my mom. My room was at the end of the hallway. The hallway had 4 mirrors that lined the walls. So before I fell asleep every night, I'd lay in bed and watch TV. I had to lay on my side because of how my room was set up. Every so often, I would catch a movement out of the corner of my eye in the mirrors. I never thought anything of it until one night I heard someone whisper, "Hello." I turned to look out my door and I saw a figure of a woman with short, curly hair, kind of like an afro in a way, in the mirrors. But I swear to you, it was the same woman I had seen when I was sick. I had seen her so many times after that. She never bothered anyone. My mom and sister had also seen her in the hallway. Her room was at the end. Her room was the room I had slept in. The couple my mom bought the trailer from would stop by every so often to say hi. Well, I had asked the lady what her sister looked like. She looked at me and asked, "Have you seen her here?" She described her sister to me, and the lady we had all seen was her sister. The lady said after her sister passed, she would see her sister every so often. Sorry for making this a long one. I love watching your videos. It was not too long, and thank you so much for watching. I knew it was going to be this sister, and I think that's awesome that she's just hanging around the house. She doesn't seem to be bothering anyone. From the sound of your story, it doesn't seem scary to you guys. She's just a spirit hanging out. I do hope that she knows that she's dead, though. Maybe if you see her again, you can try to communicate with her and like let her know that she's dead and it's okay to move on. But besides that, she seems like a harmless spirit and she's just hanging out in the house. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi. I don't have much of a story, but I was scrolling on your page and one of the stories reminded me of something. I thought it could be fun to talk about it on your page. In one of your videos, a guy was telling a story and offhandedly mentioned that the clouds were off. I totally thought I was the only one who noticed. Before the portal was opened, the clouds were normal. They were fluffy and floating through the sky as you would expect. But lately, they've been weird, almost as if they were sitting on a glass table and we were under it, looking up at the bottom of them. It looks like the clouds are sitting on something instead of floating in the sky. I'm curious if you or any of your followers have noticed this. I tried to talk to my mom about it, but I think she thought I was crazy. Or she just can't see them the way that I do. Either way, I'm sketched. The clouds are different, and I look forward to hearing what y'all think. I can't personally say that I have noticed that. I do look up at the sky a lot, and I look at the clouds a lot. And I haven't noticed any difference in the clouds. Maybe I'm just not seeing it, but that's just me personally. I would love to hear if anyone else has noticed that the clouds are different in this way of like looking through a glass table kind of situation, or if you're seeing the same clouds, let us know in the comments. Thank you so much for sharing your story and asking. Hi, Auntie. Hi. So I have meant to share the story for over 2 years, but never took the time to sit down and write. I'm much better at binging the stories you tell than writing down my own, but it feels like the right time as my life is majorly changing again. Forgive me if the time frames aren't perfect. Time isn't my strong point. So roughly 5 years ago, my marriage ended in a very difficult way. I'm so sorry. Around that same time, we all know the pandemic started. I, female, and now my ex-wife, both about 28 at the time, had been together since we were 18. And suddenly, I went from my dream life to having to kick my best friend out of our home. She was truly my best friend for a decade, and just doing the smallest things felt so empty and lonely without her. It felt like I was suddenly without a huge part of myself. We had moved to the area semi-recently, and I hadn't built much of a support system there. I did, however, have a job that I loved, and some of my coworkers there were the best friends I had. I somehow went through almost the entire pandemic without downloading TikTok, but in the earliest days of my divorce, I found a few YouTubers that centered on telling stories. So in the morning before work, I'd sit with Kendall Ray or Mr. Ballin and let them tell me stories. And I could come home and have friends to listen to, and it was very comforting, especially after about a month when the pandemic shut down the place I was working, leaving me without my only real social interactions or seeing the coworkers I was so close with. All of this to say that around this time, I discovered a way to feel less alone just by listening to good storytellers. A coping method I came to rely on heavily. Over the next 2 years, I rebuilt, and my new life was in so many ways better than the life I knew with my ex. But as life does, another huge change presented itself, and everything felt so shaky again. I was preparing to move again and was struggling with how unsure I felt about it, especially because I'd be leaving the family I built where I would be over 1,000 miles from my best friends that I was with almost every single day. By this point, I've downloaded TikTok, and while I didn't binge on it back then the way that I do now, I found a creator who told awesome stories, and I was hooked. Whenever I needed a break from all the chaos in my mind, I could sit with this creator, listen to her tell stories, and feel the comfort of a friend. As I was preparing to move, I watched her videos every day. She didn't have a ton of content as a newer creator, but I watched all of her 30 to 40-ish videos, and I rewatched my favorites over and over. At the time, the content of her videos was a bit more niche than it is today, and I loved it. She allowed me to indulge in topics that I couldn't really discuss with just anyone. It might sound a little crazy, but listening to creators tell me stories was a huge comfort and made me feel far less alone. Leading up to my move, I sat with this creator a lot. I took comfort not only listening to the stories, but her spirit. She had such a happy and positive light about her. She was hilarious, and her eyes actually showed her genuine, uplifting self. Fast forward, I have just completed the big move. I'm feeling lost and a lot of self-doubt. So naturally, I want to listen to the creators who have been there for me throughout all the other major life changes in the last couple of years. But I cannot find this creator. Not just that, but suddenly I can't remember her name, handle, or anything that could help me search for her videos. Like I said, she read stories that didn't have quite the hype that they have now. Every time I got on TikTok, I tried to find this creator, but she was gone. And I don't mean she deleted her account or anything like that. There was no trace of her on the app. Eventually, I start believing I'm just crazy and somehow imagined her page. To further drive this idea home, her content was about mysterious happenings and what people were starting to call glitches in the Matrix. So naturally, I assumed that this creator passing briefly through my life was a glitch. One of those mysterious things that she herself couldn't have explained, if she had actually existed. Time continues to move forward, and eventually I have mostly put this creator and her stories out of my mind, accepting that it was a glitch to get me through a hard time. Then one day, guess who pops up on my FYP? It's you! There you were again! Auntie Matrix telling me a story. Me? You're talking about me? I was wondering, who's this nice creator? I want to check her out. Auntie Matrix telling me a story about a glitch in the Matrix. I immediately go to your page to binge all the videos I must have missed over the last few months. To my shock, you had about 13 videos. Where were the roughly 20 other videos I knew I had binged months before? Where were my comments? Where was everything? Well, they didn't exist. Not yet, anyway. You just started posting people's glitches. If you had a page before I made this huge life transition, you hadn't posted anything yet. At least not any of the glitches in the Matrix. In fact, you still only addressed yourself as Tess in these new videos. Our glorious storyteller had not yet been named as Auntie Matrix, as we all know and love you today. So there it is, a wholesome glitch about how your videos about glitches glitched back to a point in my life when I needed to feel less alone. Then they simply glitched all the way until the day you actually started your account. Now every time one of your videos pops up, I smile, remembering how your stories found me before you recorded any of them. Thank you for reading and for your dedication to telling our stories. Thank you especially for the comfort you had no idea that you provided. Okay, what? Hold on. This is crazy. This is crazy because I don't know if you've seen, since you've been catching up or whatever, I don't know if you've seen that there have been several people, like a good handful of people that have told me that my name used to be Matrix Glitch and now I'm Auntie Matrix, and it was like a whole weird thing. So that's really weird. I wonder if you were watching the other me called Matrix Glitch that apparently existed in some other timeline these people are coming from, or if I somehow went back in time to help you out. What's also weird is you said that when you found me and I was telling these stories, I only had 30 to 40 videos, so I have been a creator since maybe 2021, I think I started doing TikTok stuff. I started my TikTok account. I can't remember exactly, but I started not doing these stories. I started doing spiritual content and other content, which I still do that content sometimes, but that was my main content back then. And then I switched to doing these later. So if you saw me doing these videos, it was not me, because it wouldn't have just been 30 to 40 videos. Like, I would have had so many videos from like the 1 to 2 years, I think maybe at least a year before I started doing these videos. And that's like a year's worth of content. It was definitely more than 30 or 40 videos. And there was other content mixed in. So I feel like you would have remembered that. The only thing I think of is like, did you maybe see? No, that doesn't make sense timeline wise. I was going to say maybe you saw, because a lot of people make fake accounts of me and they steal my videos and they put them up. So maybe you saw an account that wasn't me, but it was like someone made a impersonation account. Someone was impersonating me and they only had 30 to 40 of my videos up. And maybe that's what you saw originally. But the timeline doesn't really match up, I don't think. I don't think that that's true. If I'm reading the story correctly and looking at the timeline correctly, I wasn't doing the stories yet at that time, which is so crazy to me. And then you said when you found me again, I only had 13 videos. I'm confused about that part. Like, do you see all my videos now? Because I've been making videos forever. Are you on an impersonation account maybe? Either way, even if it was someone impersonating me and putting the videos up, I'm glad that they helped you through some rough times. I'm glad you enjoyed them. This was like a really crazy cool story. Thank you so much for sharing this. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm so interested. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I recently discovered your channel and have been watching all of your videos. Hope you're enjoying them. Thank you. Pretty cool stories, and they have compelled me to write mine. Hopefully, mine compels others to write theirs into you to read as well. 20 plus years ago, my girlfriend at the time and her family would always tell me how her house was haunted. Never thought anything of it until multiple experiences within a few weeks of each other left me scratching my head. Experience number 1. I've attached a sketch, don't laugh at my terrible drafting skills, of the layout of the house to get a clear understanding while I write this. My girlfriend and I were the only ones home at the time, sitting on the love seat in the living room watching TV, located at the entertainment center. I am seated closest to the TV. Something catches my eye, and when I look at the vertical blinds, which are approximately a quarter of the way closed, I notice 2 of the blinds moving. Oddly, however, the furthest blind to the left was still, the next 2 were moving, and the remaining blinds were completely still. I thought to myself, that's odd. The doors are closed, so it can't be the wind. Then they really started to move. I mean, a good couple of feet inwards towards the living room, but when swinging back, they were not hitting the glass door. I said to my girlfriend, "What the hell is going on with your blinds?" The moment she looks, the 2 blinds come to an immediate halt, and the front door opens. It is one of those pneumatic metal screen doors that slowly close and have a distinct air sound. I turn my head and lean past the wall to look back at the front door that just opened, and I can hear loud, heavy footsteps on the tile walking towards us, but there is no person in sight. I instantly stood up in shock with what I just experienced and began searching the house with a baseball bat that I retrieved from the garage. Safe to say, I found nothing, and I still get chills to this day whenever I tell the story. Okay, here is the drawing that they put, by the way, for this story. So they have the living room, the entertainment center. This is the love seat. So they're sitting on the love seat, and she's closest to the entertainment center. Oh, so you can see like straight ahead, you see the blinds. And then the blinds were moving, and then they heard the door open, which was over here. That is crazy. Did you ever hear anything like that again? Was your girlfriend like surprised by that or scared? Or was she like, oh yeah, stuff's haunted in here. It's cool. It's just like so-and-so. Maybe they named the ghost. Probably not. You would have told us that, I'm assuming. That is so scary though. Okay, experience number 2. Only a few weeks later, I was staying over at my girlfriend's house and we were in her bedroom sleeping. I'm a rather light sleeper and was awakened by a noise of a child emitting a strange laugh/cry, too tough to make out which one. It was a weird mixture of the 2. So I woke up my girlfriend and told her to go check on her son, who was staying in the next room over with his grandma. Completely out of it, she stumbles out of bed and goes into her mother's room to check on her son. Meanwhile, I continue to hear the sounds, and it definitely sounds like it's coming from that directly on the other side of the shared wall between the 2 bedrooms. She re-enters her room and says, "He's asleep," and then quickly puts her head back down to go back to sleep. At this point, I'm starting to question myself until a few minutes later when my girlfriend literally jumps out of bed because she can now hear the noise. She runs back into her mom's room. The boy is still asleep. This noise continued while we tried to figure out what it was and where it was coming from. We opened the window to see if we could hear anything outside. Nothing. It was right on the other side of that wall, and it seemingly came from nowhere. The sound never did stop, so after 30 minutes, I ended up going home that evening, and she slept on the couch. That sound still haunts me. Supposedly, there are more stories from that house, but those were my experiences that left me baffled. It's a bit of a strange phenomenon that nearly every person I know from El Cajon and San Diego County speaks about their house being haunted. Would love to have more people from there share their experiences on your channel. Thank you for creating a space and encouraging people to share their stories. You're welcome. Thank you for sharing yours. My question is when she went into the room to check, did she hear it while she was in the room? Like, was she still hearing the noise while she was in the room? Because the first thing I went to was like, oh, maybe he was like crying in his sleep. It was like a night terror situation or something like that. But if that was the case, she would have seen him making the noises and she would have heard them when she was in there. But if you're hearing this noise, she runs to go check and it's silent and the kid's asleep, but you're still hearing it. Like, that's kind of crazy. Where is that noise coming from then? Definitely not the kid. Definitely something weird going on in there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I don't know if you will ever read this, but since I just came across your profile a few days ago, I thought it wouldn't hurt to share my story. Look at that. We're reading it right now. Well, it's actually not my story. It's my mother's. Ooh. I live in Italy. Oh, buongiorno. And my mom was born and raised in Milan, where she lived alone in her 20s before meeting my father and moving away. The story takes place during her time living alone. Before I start, I have to say that even though I am really into the supernatural, aliens, or magic, and actually believe in these things, the rest of my family is a bit more skeptical. So I can say for sure that she wouldn't have been saying this if she wasn't sure of what she saw/felt/experienced. Okay, back to the actual story. My mom was living alone in a small apartment in the center of Milan. At the time, she was a student and a worker, so she would spend her day doing her things and get back home to sleep or to do her chores. Everything was normal there, except for the fact that often during the night she felt like someone was watching her from some corner of the room, but she figured it's a pretty common feeling among people who live by themselves. One day, she was in her bathroom washing her teeth, and she closed the water to turn and grab a towel. When she turned back, the water was on again. Max pressure, all the way opened. See, the house didn't have water handles that lift up, but rather knobs that turn, which require actual effort to open and do not loosen if one simply bumps into them. She was kind of freaked out and confused, but she quickly forgot about it and moved on with her life. A few days/weeks later, the same thing happened with her washing machine knobs. No buttons, no way for it to just turn on casually or for her to bump into it and randomly make it work. That's when she started kind of worrying about it, and the feeling at night was stronger. One night after working late, she just got into the home and jumped into bed, too tired to check on anything or even undress. She was woken up in the middle of the night by the ring bell going crazy. She got up and walked to the door to find it completely open. Doorbell still ringing, but nobody outside to actually ring it. She quickly closed the door, and the ringing stopped. At that point, she realized that if she hadn't woken up or closed the door, then anyone could have come in and hurt her or robbed her or whatever. So still kind of freaked out, she convinced herself that whatever was that woke her up that night did it to warn her of the possible danger and let her be safe. Things got back to normal for a while until one night she was in bed and the feeling of being watched randomly amplified. She was kind of scared, so she just covered her head with the blanket like every smart person would do and stayed still. And she heard it. Steps. Soft, slow steps getting close to the bed. They didn't feel heavy or threatening. They just got closer and then stopped near the bed. And as she thought it was all just in her head, she felt something sitting by her feet. You know when you're in bed and someone sits on it, making the mattress sink and tightening the grip of the sheets on your legs? That exact feeling is what she described. She was so scared that she did the only thing that came to her mind. She talked to it. "Please leave, you are scaring me." This is all she said, and just like that, her mattress got back to normal. The sheets softened on her, and the steps just left. From that day, she never had any other weird thing happening. She told me that after a while, she actually felt guilty for sending it away because she knew it had saved her that one night when she was so tired and had left the door open. I don't usually trust ghost stories because they sound so made up and come from people that can do that just for fun, but believe me, my mom is not one of those people. I believe this story. Anyway, thank you so much for sharing everyone's experiences on here. I love this format and I hope you can enjoy this little experience here. The end. So the door thing definitely sounds like it could have been a protector spirit and they were just trying to warn her like, hey, you need to close your door, which is great. But I'm wondering why the protector spirit would be doing the other things. Like, why would it be like turning on the water, or why would it be turning on the washing machine? Like, I don't know how that would help protect her in any way. Maybe they were just trying to make some sort of contact. They were trying to communicate in some way to let her know that they were there. But this is another example of how your words are powerful. So use your words, my friends. She told it to go and it went. And that will normally happen unless it's something like very negative and then you might need more help than just your words. But in a lot of the cases, your words work. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think it was a protector spirit or not? And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hey, hi! I recently found your channel and I've been addicted ever since. However, I never thought I would be submitting a story to you. The other night, I had a dream. I don't remember much, but I vividly remember one part specifically. I remember I was with a girl. I don't know her name or who she was, but I went to her and I asked, how do I get my third eye? I've never had an interest in getting one. I thought it was just a gift that some people had. And unfortunately, I just wasn't one of them. She had dark hair. I can't remember ever seeing her face, but things got real really fast. She told me I would see 2 lines and a small red dot just above the middle of my eyebrows. Once I seen them, I would have a choice to continue or to ignore it and go on with my life. She told me before I choose, I had to keep in mind that they would come for me. I remember not caring about them, and I did it anyway. I looked into the mirror and I saw what she said that I would. I pushed my finger onto that spot and my third eye came out for a second. I didn't complete the instructions because I was overwhelmed with responsibility. I then did it again and it stayed. I had my third eye. The girl told me to leave where I was and to never return because they know I had it. I woke up exhausted and I felt exhausted for the rest of the day. Since then, I have felt very connected to myself and others. I can feel everyone's emotions and I just feel a sense of peace. I have also been feeling energy in some places. The closest thing I can describe it to would be a spirit, but I've never seen or heard them. Other than that, I'm still learning and figuring out what actually happened to me that night. If you could post this and get answers from me, I would greatly appreciate it. And if this sounds crazy, I know, I'm freaking out too. It does not sound crazy to me at all. We believe you here. I mean, it sounds like you were somewhere and you asked to have your third eye opened and someone helped you to open your third eye, since now you're experiencing all these things. And I also think that because you woke up really tired, and I know when I am lucid dreaming, which, a lot of our dreams are just us being on other planes of existence, other dimensions, other timelines and things like that, and traveling places, that you weren't actually asleep and resting, you were doing something. So when I am lucid dreaming and I know it's a dream and I'm making myself do stuff, I wake up very tired. It is very tiring. So with all that taken into account, that's what it sounds like. It did sound like you met someone, I don't know who that is, in whatever place you were in, you asked about your third eye, they assisted you. What I'm wondering is, who's they? Who's they? And have they ever come for you? Have you ever had any other dreams where they are there and they're mad or they're saying things to you? Or have you not experienced the they yet? Because I'm interested in who they are. That's my opinion on it. I would love to hear everybody else's. Let me know in the comments what you think. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I have a few stories from growing up in what I now realize was a fairy trap. What? So there's the fact that I grew up on a levee surrounded by trees, a creek, and some of the most beautiful atmosphere I've ever seen. We also lived directly next to a park. Needless to say, I had a few imaginary friends growing up. However, I'm going to start this off with a dream, a confusing dream, or rather a nightmare that I still remember to this day with every detail and everything being as bright and prominent as it was the first time I had the dream. At the time, I was maybe around 5 or 6. I had a wonderful life at home. My mother and I lived with my grandparents and my uncle, who was at the time 17 or 18. In my dream, I get up out of my bed that I shared with my mother in that room that we shared with my grandparents. I walk into the living room because I hear music. It's my little piano playing. No one is there at first. Then I look up at the cuckoo clock on the wall. It has just gone off. However, it's not a clock now. It's my mother's face, or head rather, and I realize that the room is now covered top to bottom in red. There's now someone sitting at my piano playing. I can't make out their face. As I look around the room, I notice my mother's body parts separated and tossed around the room. As this nightmare tormented most of my childhood, but it doesn't end there. I then see 3 creatures. They are small with wings. They ask if this is something I'd like, and I scream at them, "No, I love my mommy and I want to keep her just the way she is." That's when they tell me that unfortunately, I no longer have the same mommy I had before. I realize then that I'm in a dream and I force myself to wake up. However, I realize now that they were correct. After that, my mom no longer cared for me the way that she did. She no longer would play with me. She would no longer interact with me if I wasn't being forced. She was much more invested with being on the phone and talking with her friends. She was a very young mother. However, before this dream, we were extremely close. Several things followed after that made me realize she was no longer the same person I knew. And hopefully soon to follow, I will have more stories. Because I have several dozen stories from growing up in that home, plus growing up. And impact makes things rather apparent, rather quick things that you realize that nobody else sees or hears or knows. Thank you so much for creating this community. You make us feel very heard and very seen. I'm so glad that's like literally the whole point, and it makes me so happy that you feel that way. In fact, my kiddos are even wanting to submit their stories, so you should hear quite a bit more from us coming up soon. Thanks again, Auntie, and thank you, Glitches. This is very interesting. First of all, the fact that they think that they grew up in a fae trap. And second of all, that they had these recurring dreams of these little creatures. I wonder if those were the fae. And maybe, you know, it's hard to see the fae are kind of in like another dimension, kind of correct. If I'm correct about that, I'm not sure. I think I am. So maybe she couldn't see them in her waking life, but in her dreams while she was asleep, she was able to kind of visit in that dimension. I wonder if the fae did something to her mother or switched her mother out or something, because there was a change in her mom. That's actually really crazy. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments, please. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I've been having a few weird experiences lately and wondered if you could shed some light. My name is Sophie, and I'm 31 years old, and I live in Hampshire in the UK. I live in a house that was built by my parents around 15 years ago, so quite a new house. My mom passed away 6 years ago from lung cancer. I'm so sorry. My dad is still alive and healthy. So I removed back into the house around 2 years ago, and since being here, I have heard noises and footsteps coming from upstairs, little creaks in the floorboards and sometimes actual footsteps. I do have 3 children, but I know it's not them, as the noise is more noticeable when they are staying away with friends or family. So anyways, that's a little background on the house, but there is more weirdness to this story. So last Sunday, September 1st, 2024, I went to my previous property, also a house of my parents, to pick up some old belongings out of the loft as my dad is selling the house. Nothing weird happened, I just got my belongings. Fast forward to Wednesday, and my partner was in our car on his lunch break and turned to the back of the car, behind the handbrake where the back cup holders are, and there sat, face down, an old photo. On the photo was myself when I was around 6 years old, my older brother who was 20, and my newborn nephew. I was also holding my doll who was named after my cousin. The strange thing about this was my partner had cleaned the car out the day before. This photo wasn't there and certainly wasn't on top of the cup holder as he cleared it all out. I then told my sister, as it would have either been her or my mom taking the photo. She said that she hasn't seen that photo in years. It just got lost. So the Wednesday evening last night, myself and my partner had no kids at home and decided to have a nice night in together. We were just watching movies, etc. All night long, something was running up and down the stairs and making a racket. We chose to ignore it and both fell asleep on the couch. I was then awoken to my bass guitar, which I had put up next to the radiator, being what sounded like thrown on the floor. It obviously startled me, so I looked. The guitar was on the floor in a position it shouldn't have been. If it slipped and fell, it would have landed with the neck facing outwards. Instead, it fell in. I will attach a photo so you can see what I mean. It could all just be a coincidence, and I am making all these little things into one story, but I'm just not sure. It all feels very strange to me, and I'm unsure of what it could be. Any insight would be appreciated, and myself and my sister and partner are all baffled, especially about the photo that hasn't been seen in years. We thought maybe it was in my belongings and fell out, but as I said, 1, it's not been seen for years and was never in my possession, and 2, the car had been cleaned out, so my partner would have seen it. As there were myself, my brother, my nephew, my sister thinks that the doll symbolizes my cousin, as it was named after him. Do you think this could be a warning to us, or possibly that one of us needs another from that photo? My head feels all jumbled up by this experience. Haha. Thank you for reading. I hope it's not too confusing. Sophie, UK. P.S. I've attached the guitar photo and the photo found in the car. So this is the photo of the guitar and the way that the guitar had fallen. And this is the photo that they found in the car. The first thing that comes to mind is maybe is this potentially your mom's spirit that's doing these things? Otherwise, I'm not really sure. You could just have some ghosties hanging out. But if nothing happened in the house before your mom passed, and then after your mom passed and you went back, things started to happen. I'm thinking maybe it's your mom hanging out. Maybe she's the one that put the picture there too. Maybe she wanted you to see that picture for some reason, or it was just her way of saying hello. I'm not really sure, but that is the best that I can come up with. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. This was something like 4 years ago during the pandemic. My mom and dad had been married since 2006 and have always shared the bedroom and slept together, which is kind of hard because my mom is a very, very light sleeper while my dad is a stone and moves a lot in his sleep. So every time he just moves a bit or gets up to go pee or something, she wakes up as well. One night she was sleeping when she randomly woke up. She had her back turned to my dad, so she turned to face him just to find out he wasn't in bed. She thought it was weird that he just left without her waking up because usually when it happens, she gets woken up either by his movements, his steps, or the lights being turned on. So she got up and she thought, oh, maybe he is in the bathroom downstairs or needed a drink and I just didn't hear him for some reason. I'll go check if he's okay because this is weird. My house has like 3 floors and an underground room plus my bedroom under the roof. On the ground floor, we have the kitchen that goes to the garden and our first bathroom, the one my dad uses during the day. Facing the bathroom are the stairs to the underground room, and next to them, the ones that lead to the first floor with the entrance on the living room and the stair to go to the next floor, which has the second bathroom and their bedroom on the right. In front of the bathroom, there's the stairs to my room. That's why during the night, we all usually use the upstairs bathroom because it's closer to our rooms. She got out of her bed and first checked the bathroom. Nobody there. The lights in the house were all off and no sound could be heard. So she went downstairs, passing through the living room, and checked if he maybe went to sleep on the sofa for some reason, but he wasn't there. So she just went to the ground floor and checked the kitchen and the second bathroom before going into the underground living room, thinking again that maybe he went to sleep on a sofa. My father was nowhere. The doors to the outside were locked from inside, so he was definitely not outside in the middle of the night. Freaked, she just went back upstairs and in her room, and guess what? My dad was there, sleeping. Not a sign that he might have been up and just went back to bed. She got scared and woke him up to ask him if maybe he got up and went somewhere, but she didn't notice, and he just went, "What are you talking about? I've been sleeping all night. Are you crazy?" To this day, we still think about this and get the chills. My dad doesn't remember anything from that night other than my mom waking him up to ask him where he went. Could this have been an alien abduction? What do y'all think about this? That was my first idea, is that he got abducted. Because a lot of people, when they get abducted, they have some sort of time loss, like time has passed. But that was definitely my first thought, that he got abducted and then they put him back. I don't know if they were monitoring and they knew that you were up and they were like, oh shit, we got to put this guy back, or what happened? But that was my first thought. Did anything weird like this ever happen again? Does he have any weird markings on him from that day? Those are my questions. But yes, I think abduction. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi, Jess. Hi, I'm Fern from the UK. I'm a massive fan of your videos and I had a recent experience I had to share. Yes. A few years ago, when I was 22 and had recently lost my granddad, I went to see a medium. Back in 2021, it was my first time ever doing this, and I didn't know what to expect, but was hoping to hear from any of my past loved ones. The medium said she had the grandfather on my mom's side coming through. She said the usual lovely stuff that you'd expect, described him in his memorial photo, said he was telling me I play my music too loud and to eat more vegetables. Nothing amazing. Then she said some weird things like, there's a wardrobe that's half empty and he's saying something about a car. When I get back to my parents' house, I tell them about the reading. They said that they were putting a new wardrobe together while I was at the reading. And we were talking about leaving part of the wardrobe empty for when my granddad's sister came to stay for the first time. It's as if he was watching. I told them about him mentioning a car, and we assumed it was about the new car my granddad bought my step-grandmother before he died. Fast forward to a year later, I am walking in the woods with a friend, catching up with stuff, and I tell her the story about the medium. I get to the bit about the car, and I say, I don't think it's about my step-grandmother's new car. I said, do you remember when I hit that deer and I had to buy a new... Before I could say the word car, Siri interrupted saying, I reckon so too. I looked at my phone and could read the text message. We freaked out big time. Did my granddad predict the future and speak to me through Siri? I even tried to debunk it and make Siri say it again, but to this day, I don't know how it was possible. My mom said she wasn't surprised because he'd always been good at tech since he was one of the first salesmen of mobile phones. That's actually pretty cool. I have some other strange contact from my granddad I will share another time. Thank you for reading my story. First of all, great medium if she was pointing out things like that. Like the one where you went back to your parents' house and they were in the middle of putting the new wardrobe together. Like crazy. And I think it's actually very possible that they were communicating with you through Siri because they can manipulate technology and electronics. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I've always had odd experiences throughout my life. When I was in first grade, I remember looking out the window, pointing to the sky, and telling my mom I missed home. Then about 2 years later, I had a dream that 3 aliens, looked like skeletons, came to outside my window. They telepathically communicated. I would have 3 visitations. This was the first. I'd have 2 more, and upon my third, they would tell me the truth and then take me home. I had a second dream when I was about 16 in which they told me I wasn't ready yet. I haven't had the third, and I'm 51, but that's not the story I wanted to tell. That's not the story? That's an interesting story. About 20 years ago, I was in bed just waking up from a nap, in that half-awake state, but I had my eyes open. And I can remember this like it happened today. Not just in my head, but in my ears. I heard someone say, oh shit, she's up and not finished rebooting. Cancel reboot 1002902. What? The funny thing is, about 6 months later, I started having all these central nervous system issues and have never been the same. Thank you, Nicole. Nicole? What do you mean? Hold on, both of these things. First of all, I'm waiting for your third visit because I would love to know what the truth is from these aliens. Second, also, do we think like the skeleton looking, do you mean like they looked like grays, or it was like not even a gray thing? It was just like they literally looked like skeletons. But what do you mean? You were waking up and you heard them say, oh shit, she's up, she's not finished rebooting, and then they canceled the reboot, and then you started having issues? Do you think if they had finished the reboot, you wouldn't have had any issues? Can you ask them to reboot you? Have you tried that? I feel like every time I went to sleep now while I'm falling asleep, I'd be asking like, hey, can you please do that reboot that you fucked up? Because I really would like to feel better. Can you please reboot? Maybe I'm going to try that. I think I'm going to try that when I go to bed tonight. I'm going to try to tell the whoever it is to please reboot me so that I can get rid of all my injuries. Wouldn't that be crazy if I woke up and I felt better? Like, what? That is really crazy and weird though. Has anybody else experienced something like this? Please let us know in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I've been watching you for a while and have always loved hearing people's stories and never thought I would experience a glitch in the Matrix, but I finally have. I don't remember exactly when it happened, possibly around the start of the year. I was driving home and stopped at a traffic light when something caught my eye in the sky. There was a bird hovering in the spot, flapping its wings and all, but not actually moving anywhere. All of a sudden, I see the light turn green, so I start driving, but the light was actually still red and I nearly collided into an oncoming vehicle. I thought to myself, there is no way, because I could have sworn the light had turned green. It was as if I saw something I was not meant to, and I was going to pay the price. But clearly whoever my angel is saved me. I cannot explain it. That bird was glitching for sure. And also, after my near car accident, I could not find the bird anywhere in the sky. Wild. I have not personally seen a bird frozen in the sky, but I have seen many videos of birds frozen in the sky, and I've heard of many people that have seen birds frozen in the sky, but I have seen a plane frozen in the sky. So we always believe you, but I extra super believe you because I've experienced something similar. But the fact that like you saw the light turn green and then you started to go and almost died, that's insane. I really hope it's not what you thought, that like you weren't supposed to see that, so they were trying to like get rid of you. Maybe that, you know what? Maybe it wasn't that they were trying to like harm you, but maybe they were like, I say they as if, who knows who I'm talking about when I say they? Fucking whoever runs the simulation that we're talking about. I don't know. They were like, oh man, she sees the bird. Let's make her see the green light so she stops focusing on the bird, and then let's fix the bird. You know what I mean? I don't know. These are just some of the thoughts running through my head, but let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Hello, Auntie Matrix. Hi. First, I would like to say I love your platform and the way you give voice to people's incredible stories. Thank you. Also, I apologize for how long this is in advance. I tried to shorten it as much as I could, but I feel like this is all tied together in some way. Okay, listen, we love long stories and we love details. It makes it so much better. So thank you for having a long story. I can only imagine how many story submissions you receive every day. I'd be honored if you tell my story, as I do not know what to ask at this point for insight, but things are getting strange in my life recently. Please keep me anonymous. I recently noticed I've started speaking things into existence, which will domino into a potential fae experience. The first couple instances were more like knock on wood situations that you wouldn't want coming true, but did, and ultimately led me to this point. To start, my coworker and I were on a break a couple of months ago, and he asked me how I liked my Ford. I replied, "It's been great for me. I've had it for 3 years now and haven't had much major issues with it." Well, the very next day on my commute to work, it broke down on me, and I was without a car for 2 weeks while it was being repaired. I thought it was a funny coincidence at the time. A few weeks later, I went to spend time with a few of my friends. We were talking about a goal that I have and mentioned a timer I set on my phone to remind myself to check on this goal's progress in a year. My friend said, hopefully I'll still have the same phone by then. And I responded with, "This is the longest phone I've had without breaking. I think it'll last past another year." Funnily enough, the very next night after work, I arrived home and had my hands full. I had picked up some dinner, I had my large water bottle, my purse, and needed a free hand for my keys to unlock the door. So I quickly stuck my phone in my purse, gathered up my dinner and water bottle in one hand and my keys in the other hand. As I stood up to go inside, my purse tipped and my phone fell out and landed screen down on the road. I picked it up and saw a small crack on the screen. I thought to myself, oh, that's a bummer, and went inside. I was eager to relax and scroll my socials, as that's one of the ways I like to unwind after work. I sat on the couch and tried to unlock my phone, but the fall my phone took actually broke the touch screen. So now I had broken my phone the night after bragging about it, having it for so long and expecting it to last a while longer. I immediately got irritated, but after a second, I thought to myself that maybe I could use this time to disconnect for a bit. I ate dinner, showered, and went to lay down. I decided to look over an Earth Alchemy Oracle card deck I had gotten a while back, but hadn't really looked at yet. As I'm looking through the cards, one specifically catches my interest. The deck came with a booklet that describes each of the cards. The card that caught my eye's description immediately starts explaining how detachment is needed and to embrace this opportunity. I was intrigued with how close the wording resembled my thoughts on the situation with my phone. Now this is where it starts to get crazy. The next day I went to work, and after I finished my shift, I walked into the locker room and started getting my things to leave. I heard a cricket chirping in the room with me and thought to myself, I wonder how a cricket got all the way back here, since the locker room is near the back of the building and you have to go through security doors to get to it. Just thought it was an interesting journey for a cricket to make, but obviously not an impossible one. I go home and randomly decide I want to look over the card description again. I read the second part of it and was truly amazed. It mentioned the Fae have a message for me and that I could find them through the chirping of crickets. What? So my attention was definitely piqued with that. I have not had much education on the Fae, so I didn't really know what else to do. I thought it was fascinating, but without knowledge or guidance on where to go from there, I left it at that. Now it's been a couple of weeks since that happened. Just tonight, I got home from work late. I got Taco Bell for dinner and was eating in my room before getting ready for bed. As I finished eating, I wadded up the burrito wrappers and put it in the bag. I went to grab the napkins I had been using to trash them in the bag as well, but they were gone. I had about 4 napkins and have yet to find where they went. It's been about 2 hours since I last had them. I was sitting on my bed. They're not in the bag, they're not on my bed, and they're not under my bed. I cannot find them. I was looking around the room even though I went straight to my bed to eat. I glanced at the vanity where my makeup is and I noticed my setting spray is stood upside down. I had put my makeup on before going to work, but I always put everything away when I'm finished, every time. Everything has a specific spot it goes in the bag. I've had this routine for years. I attached a picture of the setting spray on the vanity. I am bewildered. What is going on? Is it the Fae trying more desperately to get my attention or something else? I would greatly appreciate some ideas and advice on what to do. Here's the picture of the makeup that's upside down, which is really weird. Okay, so my knowledge of the Fae, which is very minimal also, includes the fact that the Fae are not really nice. Now, I don't know if someone could tell me in the comments, is that all of the Fae are not cool? Or is there like some kinds that are cool and some kinds that are not? Because I know a lot of them at least are not. Also, a lot of them are tricksters. And you know what? If they want your attention, here's what I'm thinking. I don't know why the Fae would want your attention. If anybody knows why the Fae would want someone's attention, also tell me in the comments. But if the Fae do want your attention and you aren't giving it to them, that may be why they took your napkins and moved your makeup. Because they can be little tricksters, right? And like steal things and do things when you're not doing what they want is something that I also hear. But why the Fae would want your attention, I'm not really sure. Does anybody know? I would love to hear in the comments. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. But thank you so much for sharing this story. That concludes our creepy compilation for today. If you like these kind of stories, there will be more videos like this, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. But if you want to keep it going right now, you can check out this video or this playlist.